want to talk about this next piece, and this is the ordinals and inscriptions. There's a lot of debate. Just like anything, there's pros and cons to everything. So I guess it depends on which side and pros and cons that you're on. On the pro side, it's generated a lot more fees for the miners. So I'm guessing the miners are probably liking that. The con side, people aren't happy that it's increased their transaction cost, even though comparatively, it's still pretty reasonable. And then so there's that. There's the pros and cons there. Then you have sort of some of these Bitcoin maximalists who think it's a misuse. It's a waste, if we want to frame it that way.
Yeah.
It's a waste of the network using it this way. How do you view this? How are you sort of breaking down, dissecting this topic?
Well, I'd like to think I have a balanced view because I've always liked the framing that, Bitcoin, you sort of have like, on one hand, like merchants, like people, me and you, all of us transacting with each other using the network. You also have miners, which are basically providing the underlying service. And there's overlap, but like when you think about them in two discrete like buckets of network participants, well, miners, like the people I sell to, they love ordinals. They don't know or care what it is, or they might know, but in the end, we don't care. It's more fees, it's more revenue, so of course we love it. Um, so I'm sympathetic to that because it's increasing our sales, it's increasing our revenue. But I'm also a user, so like I don't like paying high fees. And my personal opinion, like on NFTs and inscribing JPEGs in the blockchain, is uh, I don't really see the market for it other than people speculating and gambling. So on one hand, you can lump me in the Bitcoin maxi group. That's really you could say against them. But meanwhile, I was one of the first people inscribing on ordinals. I have
Right.
an ordinal like from way back. Um, because the way my take on it is, if your node, if you're running Bitcoin Core, which is the reference protocol, and it accepts a transaction, then that transaction is valid. And I really don't care what you used it for. It's not my business. And so if you're
You don't care if
interested
somebody wants to
in,
waste their transaction fee, right? I mean, who's to say what a waste is?
yeah, if and honestly, if you're interested in just putting, the cliche monkeys on the blockchain all day and you're paying for that, like I don't really care. I mean, we already have a spam throttle with block size. Uh, that's why there is a block size. It's so people can't just spam infinite JPEGs. There's a limitation on it. And as long as like my node doesn't know what these things are, you have to interpret the transaction data to know that it's JPEGs. Of course, like there's signals and flags, but in the end, it doesn't matter.
Don't
So
you think though that maybe one? So I mean, to your point, like if who's to say I'm wasting energy? Who's to say I'm wasting block
mhm.
size? Like who's to say what a
Yeah,
waste is to me? But don't you think?
yeah,
I mean, and certainly we saw when these first started that it was a bunch of really horrible JPEGs, if you will, the monkey JPEGs. They were the worst JPEGs. Not even the good ones that we saw, like of the whatever they were. I forget the big ones, the apes or whatever from a couple years ago. These were like the peppies. These were like really bad ones. But I feel like from an economic standpoint, incentive standpoint, like from a competitive standpoint, like it seemed like that was just kind of being done to sort of prove the case. I think if you think about this 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out from now, like they're probably not using that. If we think about inscribing stuff on the blockchain, seeing the Wikipedia being put on the blockchain, seeing the Bible being put on the blockchain, or 3D gun schematics, like that seems like a pretty cool use case, I suppose, of stuff that we want to preserve for all time. And I think so. One, I guess, do you think the monkey JPEG is like a little introductory use case that probably goes away because why would you spend that much money to send it? Do you see a higher use case of it? I guess just throw that out there.
yeah. Just as like a immutable database.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Uh, I think it's just data, right? So whatever data is valid, and if it's just a pure transaction, and it's just for me to get my Bitcoin to you at the lowest bytes, right, and the lowest fee, that's the best use case in my opinion, because it is a cash network, it's a payments network, it's a monetary system, and that's I think that
The only
use
the only
case
thing
is.
I would say to
Mhm.
that though is like In the 80s, we considered information like my morning newspaper, my nightly news. Today, it's like a kid
Yeah.
on Instagram in South Pacific posted a picture, and I see what the waves look like. So information has
Yeah.
changed, and I think what we
Yeah.
consider money or even value communication is going to be different in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't. I really just try to be agnostic. Like,
Yeah.
I just think whatever the node allows, as long as I'm running in that node software, because I presumably agree with the rule set, what argument do I have
Yeah.
like against how anyone else wants to use it? I just think it's fine. Use it any way you wish.
Also, like
And
high prices create innovation, right? So if oil prices go really high, you start figuring out how to
yeah,
get cheaper oil, or maybe an EV, or
new
new
technologies. Yeah,
technologies, right? And so, like, maybe higher fees will start to push new technologies on layer twos and layer threes and
they
things
will.
like that.
It absolutely will. I think the lightning people. I say the lightning people just because I haven't been participating in the lightning economy too much, but the people that are really building their businesses around lightning and also their intellectual capacity around developing it, which is definitely going to be a massive a scaling solution for Bitcoin, an important one. um, this is good for them. More costlier base layer stuff does unfortunately price out some of the market. That market is therefore forced to use some kind of substitute, whether it's a layered substitute like through a custodian or non-custodian, or in some cases they don't use it at all. They use something else entirely. They might even use gold coins for something, like, I don't know. Maybe that gets remonetized at some point. But these are good things. I agree completely. It prices in the necessity to drive more resources towards new tech.
Yeah.
So um,
I
that's sort of the upside of it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I was talking about. So I was talking about this the other day. You know, if you look at the monkey JPEG, the NFT thing, so to speak, right? Like the people that are buying monkey JPEGs or NFTs, whatever, they're not buying into the ethos, or I should say more specifically, the real value of Bitcoin being censorship resistant, immutable, decentralized. They're just buying, they're gambling. Too. You made that point. We saw what happened in Ethereum back, a couple years ago when the JPEGs were really going hot. The transaction fees got so high that all the NFTs jumped to Solana, where they were much cheaper. So the
Yeah,
people that want the monkey JPEGs, they don't want to pay high fees. They're gonna go where the fees are lower. So when you start thinking about this from a competitive landscape, like the financial transactions will always win out. Like the JPEGs don't care. They don't want to pay a high fee. They'll just go to Solana, and so Solana is always going to be there for them. So I think a lot of that
yeah.
just sort of takes care of itself. So one, I'm curious your point on that, and then the next question I want to add on top of that is your take on that. We have about a minute and a half. Two, do you think that when we make these changes like Taproot, we get unintended consequences like this? And do you think it'd be a
Yeah.
danger to go back and re-change it now to try to fix this? And who knows what unintended consequences we get from that?
Yeah, and that's why I've been I stir a lot of shit up on social media when I criticize the development process of Bitcoin Core, because I think there's been cases, especially when they're trying to rush upgrades, through the system, like through miner activation, like soft forks, like early signaling, and they're literally like people are literally out campaigning to mining pools to like, hey, please activate this and please signal this. It's just a terrible way to go about it, in my view. And the fact is, like, no one's perfect, including the Bitcoin Core development process. It's not perfect. And I think because me, you, and I think most of the listeners here, we're really big into Bitcoin. We think it's the future of money. I think it's critical that we don't rush things. I see this as a system that's going to last 1,000 years. Uh, People might laugh at that, but I really do think it has the fundamentals to last 1,000 years. And I don't see a rush. Like, I just think I'm like an ossifist. Like, I want the code to stop developing, or at least develop at the correct pace. And let's not. I shouldn't say stop developing. I just want things to be. We need a solid foundation for everyone to build on, and shifting it. We should be very careful about. But that's the nice thing, is the users can choose what software to run, and that's why I haven't upgraded my node personally. The node I do use at home, in a long time, and I don't plan on it. But what that really means is more of an ideological LARP. But um, that's why I'm an ossifist. I prefer to keep things slow, very
Yeah.
slow.